Hi, everybody. This is Blaine DeSantis, and I welcome you to another edition of Books and Looks. Yes, it's our weekly voyage of discovery in the wonderful world of books. Books I've read and author I've interviewed. And before I get into that today, I want to ask all of you out there if you could do me one favor. Do me a favor. Could you do that, folks? If you are getting this on YouTube, push that button that says subscribe. Push that subscribe button. It costs nothing to subscribe, okay? If you get this on a podcast, put down your following or like it. Do something I want to have a little interaction from you, the fans. Let's see if you can let me know that you're getting all this stuff and you're enjoying it, okay? Anyway, for today's interview, we are joined by a gentleman I had a wonderful time interviewing. His name is Chikodi Anunobi. He's from Nigeria. He's written a book called The Thief and the Patriot. This is a book, it's a novel about the situation over in Nigeria, the corruption that's going on over there, and one gentleman who got caught up in the corruption. We are going to learn a lot about that country, including the fact that it is the fifth largest country population-wise in the world. I never knew that. We'll find about some culture. We're going to find about the corruption, how it's all over the government there. We learn about something called Off-OPEC oil. So I want you to pay real close attention to this because we're talking not just about the book, but we're talking about tribal conflicts, tribal issues. We talk about cultural assimilation. It's a wonderful, wonderful book by a guy who never had any really creative writing classes. I'm amazed. I found this. I love it. I hope you're going to like it. So without any further ado, let's go right to my interview with Chikodi Anunobi. Welcome to Books and Looks.
Thank you, Blaine. Good to be here.
I'm very happy to have you here. You wrote a wonderful book, and I learned so much about your native country of Nigeria, and you do a wonderful job in this book. And so that's why I wanted to have you on, because so many of us don't know much about Nigeria, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I do want to say I've found a lot out, because now you send me to Wikipedia, and I'm looking this up, I'm looking that up. What don't I know? I don't know much, to be very honest with you. So very good. Hey, before we get into the book, sir, tell us a little bit about yourself. Were you born over in Nigeria?
Yes, I was born in Nigeria, and I grew up in Nigeria before coming to United States. I came to US when I was 23 to go to school. I worked a little bit there for a couple of years after high school, and decided I have a couple of my friends that were already here, and I wanted to come and deal with them, and ended up going to school at the University of Washington, and I majored in liberal arts. I was going to go to law school with that, but eventually went into software development, which is the industry that I'm working in right now. And I mainly write for now on weekends and during my free time. So, but I work as a software engineer during the as my day job.
Did you go to a public or a private high school in Nigeria?
So at the time that I was growing up, there were, even though there were private schools in the past, especially schools that were built by the missionaries, they were taken over by the government. So every school was considered a public school.
Now, when you came over, did you come with your parents or did you come by yourself?
I came by myself. I came by myself. And even up till now, much of my family is still back in Nigeria.
Do you go back to visit them now and then?
Yes.
Good. Now, did you see a big cultural difference between what you were expecting of America and what you actually found out?
Not very much. I saw, I had some surprises, but it wasn't that much because I watched a lot of American movies and also read American magazines. And some of my friends were already here, and they kept me updated on what they were doing and what challenges that they were facing. So, based on the feedback that I got from them before coming, it wasn't much of a surprise.
All right. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you were sort of ready when you got over here. I know when my wife came over, she was from Romania, and it was a big difference from what she was expecting. So you didn't have that. Now, did you ever take any creative writing classes?
Um, I took one class when I went to community college for a couple of years before going to University of Washington. So I took creative writing when I was in community college, but it was just one class. And yeah, and I don't think it has anything to do with my writing. It was just a requirement that I had to take at the time. Yeah, my writing is something that I learned on my own and then went to workshops.
That's very, very good. And folks, I'm I'm showing you now the Chikodi's book, The Thief and the Patriot. Wonderful book, wonderful book. I think you're all going to really enjoy this, and that's what we're going to be talking about here. One of the things, Chikodi, I noticed is that the publisher. I was not familiar with the publisher. Where is your publishing company?
University Press PLC is in Nigeria, and it's one of the oldest publishers in Nigeria and currently the largest indigenous publishers in Nigeria. And it was founded in 1949 as was part of the British Oxford University Press, Nigeria, before they changed their name and broke away from as part of that institution. So right now, it's mostly publishes um, academic books and sometimes some cultural books as well.
Now, did you try to get this book published in the United States with a U.S. publisher, or did you always want to go have it published in Nigeria?
I wanted to publish in US, but I couldn't. I didn't approach US publishers. I approached the agents, um, and I couldn't get any of them to sign on. So I decided to. I wanted to publish in US and then publish in Nigeria, but as it turns out, I couldn't get that to work. Then I went to US to Nigeria and published there
Good.
first.
You know, where there's a will, there's a way, and you got it published, and good for you. Yep, absolutely. Now, as I said, I've learned a lot about Nigeria. And, you know, we've heard of Nigeria, but we don't know a lot about it. For instance, I didn't realize it's the fifth largest country by population in the world. In the world. I couldn't believe that. Tell us a little bit about Nigeria, where you grew up, what town you were from, the capital, etc. Well, to educate us on some of Nigeria for us.
So Nigeria, as you mentioned, is the largest country in Africa in terms of population. It has the geographical area the size of Texas, but has about half of the population of US. So I believe that the population has to do with its positioning. It's positioned through um, two major rivers. So people tend to converge where there's a body of water. So I believe that that has to do with that has something to contribute to the population. It's about 50-50 is a Muslim population and 50% Christian population. And it's a democratic country. Democratic in quote, because there's a lot that goes on there that is not democratic. Yeah, a lot of people there, Nigerians love going to school, even though that part of the country don't really encourage people to go to school, but the parts that encourage people to go to school really love going to school and are exposed. Nigeria is closely always closely aligned to US, to the United States, and has a lot of help from the United States in terms of building its democratic institutions. And Bill Gates is the highest philanthropist in Nigeria and has done a lot of work related to polio eradication and poverty eradication as well. So, yes.
Now, let me ask this question, and I was going to get to it later, but as we're talking now, let me ask this question of you. There are a lot of tribes in Nigeria. How many tribes do you have in the country?
It's basically it depends on the source of the data. I've seen some sources put it at 250 tribes. I've seen some put it at 300 and something, and some at 400. But um, somewhere between 250 and 400 tribes in Nigeria.
Wow. And then I read, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, please do, but I've read there are over 500 languages spoken in Nigeria. Could that be correct?
Yeah, and I have to add also that some of them are going extinct because um, because of the interaction with one another. Um, right now, Nigerians mainly speak English across tribes so that they can work with each other. So because of that, the younger ones are mainly speaking English and don't really maintain the past traditions. So some of the languages are going extinct.
Okay. Well, now you start right off in your book and you start saying that we're going to be looking at the relationship maybe between tribal culture and political corruption. Is that an ongoing issue right now, sir?
Yes, and that has to do with my last point also, that some languages and cultures are going extinct. So cultures are becoming more and more desperate to survive, and they are willing to do things that are not things that are corrupt, even things that are corrupt to survive. So um, so the corruption is being driven by cultures being desperate to survive, and other cultures being desperate to have their way with the weaker cultures. So that's what mostly is driving the corruption. And then there's also resource. The more power the bigger cultures have, the more resources that they can get. So that is also a part of the problem.
Wow, that's really something there. We don't think about that there are these this push and pull, and that creates the problem. Now, and so this push and pull, this is one of the big reasons for the corruption, because everybody wants to get to the top, and when they're there, they don't want to give it up. And that's how small are some of the smallest tribes? Like a handful of people or hundreds of people? What's the smallest tribe you know of?
There are quite a bit of smaller tribes. There's three major tribes, and they have much of the population. And in some parts of Nigeria, you can go from one county to another county, and you hear a completely different, even from one city, one town to another, and you see a completely different culture. But um, overall, I would say that it's about 25% of the smaller cultures, pool for smaller cultures, and then the uh, larger cultures share about 70 to 75% of the population.
Okay. And one thing we won't talk about today, but I want everybody out there to know, is there are some wonderful, wonderful recipes for food that Chikodi has graciously sent to us, and my wife will be making those. So when she makes them, we're going to let you know how they turned out, because we're excited to to have some Nigerian food here in our house, even though we can't get the purely Nigerian foodstuffs here, but we're gonna make them. So that's a big part, though. The food is a big part of your culture too, sir, isn't it?
Yes, and that's one of the benefits of having a multi-cultural environment that you get to see food from different cultures, and then at a point, the best one eventually emerges as a national food. So the ones that I sent you, they are the ones that, even though they may have started as regional food, are now served in major restaurant that host major events.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to this. Looking forward to this. I've already shared my wife's South African babooty or boba. I don't know how you pronounce it. We shared that with you also. We shared that, so we have a fun time here. One thing that I noticed about this book is that it grabbed my attention right from the first page. Right from the first page, friends, this book grabbed my attention. It was out of this world, and that to me is what makes me want to get into a book. If you can get me from page 1, you got me, okay? It begins off like this. It says, "I knew that this day would come, the day of reckoning, when my stories would unravel at the seams. Sometimes I envisioned scenarios of how it might play out. Sometimes I had nightmares about it. Always I would manage to deceive myself and say, 'Ah, Bona, you worry too much. They will never catch up with you. You're too clever for your environment, too smart for your time.' But deep down, in my heart of hearts, I had no doubt that I would become one among the lambs, sacrificed for the collective sins of those who sought to use our nation for their own aggrandizement." And then he says, "My name is Bonaventure Onadira Nangale Angela, and I am a thief, a liar, and a fraud." Wow. Wow. A thief, a liar, and a fraud. That's something. Where did you get that? Where did you get that opening from, sir? That's wonderful.
It just happened, and it was not initially the opening, but my smart editors suggested that I move that up front, and it worked out really well.
Well, you got me. You hooked me on page 1, sir. You hooked me. Oh my. So this is the story of your protagonist, Bona. Is it Angela or Angela?
Angela.
And there are two incidents. There are two incidents that start him on his descent into corruption. One with his father and uncle, and one at school. Could you tell us a little bit about those two incidents?
Yes. So Bona was born into, so in Nigeria, um, each town has like a mayor, which is a kingship, but it's a lifetime mayor of the town. So that's the chiefdom. And Bona's grandfather was the chiefdom of the chief of their hometown. And his father, being the first child, was supposed to inherit that chiefdom, but was not very interested, was lukewarm about it. But Bona's uncle, who was a younger brother of his father, was so ambitious that he bribed people to get the chiefdom. And Bona's father didn't really care about it because it was not his cup of tea. He was not interested in village stuff. But Bona cared. Bona wanted to inherit it because his grandfather sort of hinted to him that he was going to inherit it. So Bona became aggrieved when he learned how his father got the position, when his uncle, how his uncle got the position and not his father. So that was a lesson that he learned, that you can bribe people to get what you want. And so when he went to high school, he had an ambition to become the senior prefect, which is the like the school student's advisor or student lead. So he wasn't even thinking about bribing people, but his friend that he trusted told him that this is how it is done, that you have to play the game, you have to bribe people to get ahead. And that's what he did. He bribed one of the teachers that was influential, and the teacher basically made it happen for him. So after that happened, he now became like invisible. He now know how the game is played, and he's a smart person, and he could play the game, and then that's the beginning of his crime spree.
Did you were you when you were going to school over there? Were these positions there, and were you aware of people who were actually doing bribing people to get those positions?
No, I didn't know of any particular person, but I know of people that um, give bribe to get grades in high school, and I just use it and know that such a thing could happen, and might have happened while I was there. So, but I didn't know of I don't know of a particular person that did it.
Now, one of the things you mentioned was that the uncle who was second in line actually became the chief of the town because he was bribing a lot of people. Did in Nigeria, sir, do does this happen? Is there a friction? Like the young boy Bona's father was okay, that's fine, but is that always the way to get it happened, or do other people? The oldest one now starts fighting with the second oldest one, and everybody gets into a real battle over who becomes the chief.
Yes, sometimes it may be stalled for years. I know places right now that it is basically in the court system and stalled for years, and nobody takes that position. So this is a position that a lot of people use as like a retirement kind of thing. They will have their career in engineering or in, they'll have their career. And then when they retire, that's where they want to go to basically live out their days, because it's a lifetime position. So because of that, a lot of people fight to get that position.
Now, Bona eventually goes to colleges. Goes to college, and again, through my research, I found that there are two different types of college systems over there. There's the federal institutions and there's state institutions. What's the difference between the two of them?
They are mainly the same. Their um, academic certificates are mainly the same. They are honored the same. But the major difference is that the federal institutions are funded by the federal government, and the federal government are mainly for free. So a lot of people fight to go to federal institutions. And the federal government has a lot of money. Um, and then the other difference is that the federal government is open to everybody to go to. Um, but the state institutions are reserve certain pool for out-of-state students, and then are mainly created for the indigenous population. So somebody applying to a state institution out of state has limited chance of getting admitted, because they have a smaller reservation for out of state candidates. So those are the two major. But for federal government, federal college, it can be in any state. Everybody has equal chance of getting in.
One of the things I found fascinating is you had your lead character Bona uh, take some very intensive English courses, got tutoring. Why was that so important to him?
At the time that he took that course, he didn't care. It was his mom that pushed them to take that course. And his mom knew that it will give him more credibility if he speaks with um, a certain diction that outsiders can understand better than people that didn't take the course. So, um, I mean, somebody he in the book he sounded like somebody who was raised in Great Britain, but um, a regular person who didn't go through that type of training would sound like a local person and may not be understood because of their accent, heavy accent. So it's a way of giving somebody more advantage to remove that accent.
Tell you what, that really helped him because he goes to gets his law degree and he gets a job at a very prestigious law firm, and because of the way he spoke, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, wow. Well, it didn't take him long to start moving up the ladder, though. Around 4 or 5 months after he got there, what happened? How did that happen about?
Well, they might have recruited him for his good English, but after they recruited him, they understood that he has some other skills that can benefit them. Um, yeah, his other activities, criminal activities, and the law firm approached him and basically gave him more important roles to play because of what they were doing.
Well, let me ask that. Here's one thing I don't think people here in America are familiar with, and you bring it up, something called off-OPEC oil. Off-OPEC oil. What is off-OPEC oil, and how does that play a major part in all the corruption in Nigeria?
So, off OPEC oil is basically OPEC was created to give quarters to different its members so that it doesn't flood the market with oil and then have a lower price. So, but its members found a way to sell without the knowledge of OPEC, basically sell in the black market. So in Nigeria, it's called the off-OPEC because it's not approved by OPEC. So it is done. It is done as basically outside of the approval of OPEC, and OPEC can fine a country a lot of money, huge amounts of money, if they found out that this is going on. So the setup was that the companies they set up like fake companies that did it for the government, and because of that, it's done under the table. So because of that, it attracts a lot of greedy people that something that is not transparent, they tap into that to enrich themselves. And that's how they basically Bona helped them to. He was a lawyer, and he's a lawyer, and he knows how to play the game.
And it seems like everybody who came into power, and there were a few times we had power changes here in the book, he always seemed to be until the very end. He was the guy who survived because he knew how to play the game.
And he was good at what he did, and because of that, people actually came looking for him to help them with the next scheme because he did it so well with his previous clients.
Wow. Well, he learned it young, and he was a young man. Anyone, this? How old do you think, when as you go back and think of this, how old would you think Bona is when he writes this book? How old do you have Bona being? Is he in his 30s? Do you think he's in his 40s? How old do you think he is?
In his 50s.
Looking back on his life and what happened. Yeah, that's interesting. Wow, he's not. So he wasn't an old man. No, he was not at all. No. Well, now, you know, what do you think these situations with the corruption and the tribal conflict, are that going on in other countries? You think in Africa? You know so much more about it than I do. But do we see that? Do you see this playing out in other nations?
Yes. I mean, Nigeria gets a lot of attention because of international crime, because of its population, because of its size. But other countries through the same thing. If you go to South Africa, if you go to Kenya, there are, different aspects of it. But Nigerians tend to be more aggressive, so it's more pronounced in Nigeria. But other countries have like tribal cultural warfare in Rwanda, in Sudan. Sudan actually broke into two because of that. So a lot of countries go through the same thing, and they are not. It doesn't help that outside forces also play a part in encouraging that.
You're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Wow. Now, the title of the book is called The Thief and the Patriot. We already know that Bona says, I'm a thief. I'm a liar. I'm a thief. I'm a fraud. How does Bona become a patriot now? That's the next question.
Well, in Nigeria, a lot of people that do these shady things, they cover themselves up as posing as the patriots. We are the patriots, and therefore don't question us. And the cabal that recruited Bona eventually um, were the people that are organizing all these shady activities. So Bona was a part of it. So the title of the book is not only describing Bona, but describing the entire cabal that poses as patriots.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's interesting. They're the patriots. That's true. Yeah. And everybody paints themselves and portrays themselves as the patriots. Even the guy they just kicked out, the next guy, the patriot, and the next one after that. So, wow. Were most of these power changes in Nigeria, were they mostly different tribals getting into power? Then is that what happened? One general would take over, then another general would take over. Were they of different tribes or the same tribe?
They are mostly different tribes. Sometimes you can have succession from one tribe, another person from the same tribe kicks them out because the powers that be are no longer happy with the previous person. But the cabal that runs Nigeria, um, even dictators cannot survive or even emerge without their knowledge. So one person emerges because they are fed up with the previous person. So nothing happens without their knowledge. I mean, the cabals in the book were organized differently, but there's definitely some truth to that book version of it.
How do you think this book's going to be received over in Nigeria?
Well, a lot of the things I wrote in the book common knowledge in Nigeria. I mean, the academic part of it, that is the debate about cultural diversity and why would we ought to promote unity, may be a little bit, the argument may be a little bit new, but the actual events in the book are not that new. But the government, still, the people in charge may not, just the fact that it's getting attention, they may not welcome it. But ordinary folks know that, what is going on.
And that's one of the big things that we get on in the book. Eventually, Bona ends up in prison, and he sort of has a well, I don't know if you call it a spiritual, but he has a revelation, and he becomes a brand new person, and he starts realizing, oh my, I should be done my life differently. That's fantastic. It sounds like you're giving me a college lecture there, Chikodi. How'd you come about writing that?
Initially, I wanted to write a book about crime, but I also had a material that I was going to publish as a nonfiction about cultural diversity. So when I started writing the crime story and interrogating the protagonist, he pointed me to the culture war, which him and his group tapped into and promoting to that is the source of his crime.
I sat there reading this and I kept thinking, my God, is he writing about America with all the cultures that are now, we don't have tribal cultures, but we got everybody pushing and pulling and and it's changed so much. And yet it reminded me of some of the major issues you have going on in your home country of Nigeria. Wow. That's does that surprise you at all? The way we're clashing over here?
It's basically all over the world right now. In Europe, nationalist candidates are getting elected. So I think that cultures are going extinct, just like in Nigeria. And people are doing whatever they can to survive. The cultures are doing whatever they can to survive. So I think that that's what is driving the cultural clashes. And the sooner we realize that that it doesn't lead anywhere, that we need to negotiate and form a unified culture that works for everybody, the better it will be. It will be for everybody. Let me add one more point. So in the book, at the end of the book, Bona was reflecting on his activities, and he realized that in his tribal culture, human life was considered sacred. But at the time that he was writing the book, even though that human life was considered sacred when it started playing the Nigerian game, at that point, they were burning people alive. And yet, they were fighting to save the same the culture that they of their imagination, because the culture has already gone. So what they were fighting to save is no longer there. So it would have served them if they had worked with other people to create a better environment for everybody.
I thought you made a very good point between the tribal myths and the tribal realities. And the myth was one thing and the reality was certainly something else. But, you made us reflect. The right reader has to reflect upon all these things, cultural assimilation, the tribals. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful book. And I know your first book got an award from the USA Today. I'm hoping this book gets an award also. It's very well done. Which leads me to the question: what's next? What's next for Chikodi? Are you working on another book now?
Eventually, but I'm trying to market this one. I have materials left from this was like 150,000 words novel that eventually trimmed down to about 50,000 words. So I still have materials that I can organize and make into another book.
Well, I can't wait to find that out. Maybe you're going to be just going to be coming out in the next year or two. I don't know, but you've got a lot of good stuff here, and you've taught us a lot about the corruption over there, a lot of bit about the culture over there. We've learned a lot about Nigeria, and I'm going to tell you what. I really thank you for opening my eyes to a lot of this stuff, and I want to say thank you for coming on today's show, Chikodi. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Blaine. I really had fun, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to appear before your audience.
Well, Chikodi, I thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed it. I love learning about Nigeria, and if we get try any of these Nigerian recipes that he's given us, We're going to let all of you know about it because they sound wonderful from what I've seen. So I can't wait to taste them. Hey, what am I looking at? I had something all about views on books. I had that all prepared. But something bigger has happened. Yes, something bigger has happened that I'm looking at. You all remember Punxsutawney Phil. He was right, wasn't he? He said spring's right around the corner. Did you know Punxsutawney Phil has a wife? Yes, he's got a mate. Her name is Phyllis. Now, that's not a big deal. But let me tell you what is a big deal. Did you know that last week, Punxsutawney Phil and Phyllis became the proud parents of a litter of groundhog pups? That's right, they're groundhog pups. Phil is procreating. There's progeny. I'm going to tell you what, there will be many, many more years of groundhog predictions coming in from Punxsutawney. I'm telling you, there was a rightist opinion. I tell you, the other thing that cracks me up is that the handler of Punxsutawney Phil and Phyllis didn't even know she was pregnant. Whoops, here they come, Anyway, that's what I'm looking at. Let's have a little bit of laughter and a lot of fun here, okay? Hey, anyway, folks, on behalf of viewsonbooks.com, on behalf of my good friends at Podcast Studio X, this is Blaine DeSantis for Books and Looks saying, may all your leaves be pages in a book.